All right, the stakes are getting higher, but so is the intrigue. Let's talk about Foundation Episode 2. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watcher Pass, and it's Foundation Day. We are talking about Foundation Season 3, Episode 2, Shadows in the Math, coming to Apple TV Plus on July 18th, 2025. It's the second episode in Season 3, and Season 3 is a very different season than Season 2. A lot of time has passed, as we found out in Episode 1, and the stakes are a lot bigger, and so is the intrigue. So is this episode worth your time? Is it worth watching? My hot take is I think you should watch it. I didn't like this one as much as the last episode. I thought the last episode was better overall. But episode 2 is still a solid episode that lays some groundwork for some future schemes. I liked some of the new characters. I finally liked the Mule a little bit. And I liked kind of the schemes, the things that look like they are going to happen in the future. So I think that this is a good episode. This is one that's going to make you excited for the rest of this season. Let's just hope it keeps this trajectory. So, all that being said, I'm going to tell you about the episode, a few things I like, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into a recap. So, as you can imagine, there'll be spoilers in the recap section. If you don't know what happens in this episode, and you might not, there are some big surprises along the way. I would turn it off when I get to the recap. Before that, though, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler free. I'll let you know when I get to those spoilers. So, in Foundation Season 3, Episode 2, we kind of learn a little bit more about what's happening. Episode 1 really just kind of introduced the world, let us see where some of the people are, and then also laid some groundwork for this second episode, where now we get to learn a little bit more about Foundation, a little bit more about the Empire, and we get to see another sinister scene with a mule. So, all that being said, things I liked about this episode. The first, I like Brother Day. He was a little bit annoying in the last episode. This one, he's a lot more fun. He is just kind of an X factor now. He is very kind of like laissez-faire about everything. He doesn't really care about what's going on. He's kind of renounced his empireness. We will see if this is just an act to kind of like raise some eyebrows, or if this is actually what he's going to be like the entire season. But he is at least fun to watch. And look, I like Lee Pace, so the more that Lee Pace can just do weird stuff, very, very fun. The second thing I liked the mule. There's a really good scene here where the mule shows how scary he can be, and I thought it was really good. He still isn't like the most imposing figure, but I think he definitely feels sinister, feels calculating, and this scene is really, a nice way to show that. The third thing I like the schemes. Feels like there are some big things moving, some big political pieces, some big kind of like assets being moved in place. The different factions are starting to kind of like try to play off each other, and maybe they start to recognize that there might be a large threat involved. The last thing I really liked, I like the ending. It was something I kind of called in the last episode, and now this kind of shows it. So all that being said, things I didn't love as much. The first, they introduce a new character, kind of a like leisurely character that I didn't really find super interesting. We'll see. I mean, we will see what happens. I bet he will play an important role later on, but this didn't really give me a great feeling about him. And the second thing I didn't love as much, I'll just call it Star Wars question mark. Now, a lot of this season so far has felt like very similar to Star Wars. In the episode 1, we had a speeder bike section. Episode 2, there is something else that we get introduced to that feels very much out of Star Wars. Maybe Star Wars is based on Foundation. That's probably the case. I mean, Star Wars came after, but there does feel like there's definite sequences here that feel like they are homages, maybe similar enough to big things in Star Wars. So I'm just gonna leave it out there. So all that being said, I like Foundation season 3, episode 2. I definitely think you should check it out. You should get on this whole Foundation train. It has been up and down, but overall, I've enjoyed this series a lot, and I am liking where season 3 is going. So if you see it, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I'd love to hear it. I'm going to really quickly go into a recap right now. So if you don't know what happens this episode, I would turn it off now because there will be spoilers. So I'll just start with the mule. That's the easy one. I'll split this up into the different factions. We'll start with the mule. The mule's on Coggin, and we see this really brutal scene where the mule shows how he can bend people to his will. He gets the entire, I don't know, the Calgan ruling group into a dining hall with the Archduke's daughter, Scarlet. Now, we saw the Archduke in the first episode. He went to meet the mule to fight him, and the mule ended up turning all of his soldiers against him and then made the Archduke kill himself. Well, now his daughter is here, and the mule shows the abilities that he has. His daughter says that she loves the mule more than anything, and then she's trying to please him, and the mule gives her a gun, and he he asks her to put it to her head. She does. He does a countdown, and then when she pulls the trigger, it doesn't go off. But he shows just the power that he has, and he says basically that he can control people, but it does take a toll, so he needs to find other ways to control people. And this is one way, right? If he's going to threaten the daughter, this beloved daughter, that's going to get some people to fall in line. That is probably how he's going to do it. He uses very, very egregious actions to get people to just listen to him because of what he can possibly do. He's not going to control everyone's mind. He just needs to control the specific people. That is the Mule. Now, over on Foundation, we see what Gaal and Harry have been up to in the 152 years since season two. They are in cryosleep. They sleep for most of the year. They wake up for a couple weeks and teach the Foundation Mentalics about psychohistory, and also Gaal teaches them to use their powers. They're trying to train them, get them ready to fight the Mule. But we find out that there's not enough time. A few weeks a year is not enough. And so as they do it, eventually Harry decides that he is not going to cryosleep and he's going to help full time while Gaal sleeps. So Gaal goes back into cryosleep and he doesn't wake her for 148 years. And you're like, dude, I mean, Harry, great. They know about psychohistory. Gaal needs to teach them about mental powers and stuff like that. I don't think you can teach them. This doesn't seem like a smart move. But Harry says that Gale's time was much more valuable, so he lets her sleep for the entire time, wakes up, and Harry is older now, and he says that the third crisis is almost there. He gives Gaal a new Prime Radiant and talks about 8 crises, and he says that the Invictus is the most important one. If the Mule is defeated, then that is where everything is headed. So a little bit of foreshadowing. We'll see if the Mule gets defeated. Feel like that's the entire point of season three. We'll find out. Harry then goes and dies. He goes and meets the psychic person that we saw earlier in season two, and she takes him in a portal. So Harry's now gone. And the new speaker, who is mute, ironic that the speaker's mute, but he signs. Gaal eventually learns sign language, and they find out that they're looking at the Prime Radiant, and when the Mule took Calgon, an inflection point was created. This like buzzing point that looks like it's not necessarily decided. Feels like the Mule can kind of like transcend some of Harry Seldon's work. Now we kind of still within the alliance because the traitors are part of the Foundation alliance. We go and find out that Hober Mallow, who was a hero in I think season two, he pierced Empire, um, is now have become a hero and established the alliance of traitors. His grandson Torrin Mallow is not exactly interested in any of the things that his grandfather established. He's basically on a living in Calgon, kind of a leisure person, just trying to live his life. Basically, your stereotypical like fabulously wealthy heir, just doesn't want to do anything, just wants to kind of like relax. And while he's on this planet sunbathing, the Mule ship blocks out their sun. They also like seems like maybe influencers. They've got these things called scatters, which are basically just cameras taking pictures, and it looks like they're like going through. Maybe they'll upload them. I'm not exactly sure, but feels like Torrin doesn't really care that much. Now, Pritcher, the head of information for Foundation that we saw earlier, he took the mayor's ship to go and fight the Mule. Well, this is going to be, I guess, how he fights the Mule. He shows up and he says he wants to speak to them. He wants them to spy on the Mule. He wants them to get close to the Mule because if they're caught, then Foundation won't be implicated because it'll just be the traitors. Pritchard wants to go to some sort of party the Mule is throwing, and he wants Torrin to take him as his +1. That's how he's going to get close to the Mule. We will see if this is a good idea, but this seems to be what Pritchard wants to do. So that's the Foundation side. Now, over on Empire, they're on Trantor, and they're looking at the same inflection point that Gaal and the new speaker were looking at, that buzzy inflection point when the Mule took Calgon. And they talk about this, they talk about stuff that could happen, and then eventually Dusk tries to get Demerzel to not have him move on. Earlier in the last episode, he was watching kind of previous brother Dusks being kind of reduced. Some of them went willingly, some of them went unwillingly. Dusk seems to be very worried about his mortality, and he wants to stick around. So he tries to get Demerzel to spare him. She says no, she has to keep the order. Part of what she does is keep the clock that is the various Cleons, and she is very good at that. So, without Demerzel, Dusk then goes to the next person, Day. Day is out living his life. He's gambling with the soldiers. He seems to be friends with them. He plays a game with one of the soldiers and like loses a family artifact, but he doesn't really care because he doesn't really care about life right now. Doesn't really care about anything. He just kind of like wants to reject his empireness. And so He is hanging out with them, but later when he's hanging out with his courtesan, I think, in his like palace area, Dusk comes by and tries to convince Day to keep him around, and Day sees right through him. He says, "You already asked Demerzel, and now you're asking me." And he basically says that we are all abominations and we shouldn't even exist, so he is not going to help Dusk. Now, Dusk then goes to Brother Dawn's robing ceremony. This is where is gonna accept the robes to become Empire. He is, I think, a few days away from becoming Empire, and so Dusk goes there. He seems to be very fatherly. I imagine Dusk will now try to get Dawn to spare him. He has gone through the various levels of power. Dawn is the next up, but Dusk also does seem to care. He does seem to want to help Dawn. So he is there. It is a sweet scene, and then Dusk says that he wants to help him in a few ways. One, he is going to introduce him to the ambassador from Foundation. She has been a resource. They have become friends, and so he is going to make that connection so he can use them. But also, he has a new gift, and then we see what this gift is. He hasn't given it to Dawn yet. We see Dusk looking at it. It is a new weapon, basically a Death Star. That's what the Star Wars thing is. Like, it's pretty much a Death Star. And they say, oh, we harness the power of a black hole, and then we can shoot like photons through it, and that does something, blah, 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 blah. But we can tap the outer layer of electromagnetic power to shoot a beam that can go into a planet and blow it up. And they show it. They show it very much like Star Wars. They shoot the beam at the planet just disintegrates basically using the power of a black hole. So that is the new weapon that Brother Dusk has come up somehow in secret, somehow away from Demerzel. I don't know how that's possible, but Dusk has created this mega weapon. So that is what Dusk has been up to. Then we see the dinner with Dusk, Dawn, and the Foundation ambassador. It seems like Dusk and her are actually pretty good friends. It seems, she seems genuinely sad that Dusk is going to leave. But Dawn is already trying to make moves. He's asked the ambassador about the mule. He tells her that he's worried about this. He seems to be trying to get Foundation to help out, trying to get Foundation to kind of get on board. And then we see why, because after this, Dawn goes into his, chambers, makes a call, and wouldn't you know it is Gaal. Dawn and Gaal are talking. They're talking about the mule. It seems like they have one enemy that they can both agree to, and that is the mule. So that is Foundation episode 2. What do we think this is going to happen? What do we think is going to happen? Well, it seems like Foundation and Empire are going to have some sort of alliance, at least talk. We'll see if this alliance holds. We'll see if this is a true alliance, but it seems likely. It seems like they're both worried about the mule, and so we will see. Now, one thing that was interesting was Dawn earlier had said, he's still Empire. He only cares about his people, himself. So teaming up with Foundation would only be good if he's going to help himself. We'll see how long that lasts. I imagine Dawn could betray Foundation at some point if it works out for them, but we'll see. We will see. Now, uh, I still don't know what the Mule's plan is. He seems to want to take over large areas and he's consolidated his power on Callaghan. Maybe he's going to then move to other parts of this. Maybe he's going to take over certain ambassadors and try to get them to take over their plans. We will see. The Mule seems to want to gain power and doesn't seem to be worried about the large entities all around him. And, it's still a question I have. What's up with Day? Is Day going to stay in this kind of laissez-faire world? Is he going to turn around? Is this all an act? Maybe it's something that he wants to do to kind of like put everyone's guard down. I'm not sure. We will all find out. And also, what's Pritchard going to do when he meets the mule? Is he going to meet the mule? Is he going to be able to resist? Is Torin going to help him? Are the traders going to be down out? There's a lot of questions left that we will have to find out in the rest of the season. But that is Foundation season 3, episode 2. Like I said, I really like this episode. I like season 3 so far. I'm excited to see where it goes. And if you do, and you should check it out too. If you do see it, let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I'd love to hear it. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.